Sabrina, thank you. We're showing
so
you
as
now,
we're continuing to,
right, what happened just about 10 minutes ago as that car raced through the demonstrators, and you could see there were some who were at least trying to stop that vehicle. There were some who were in front of it, but luckily we were able to get out of the way. And then at the tail end of that section of demonstrators, you could see at least one officer who tried to reach out and do something to stop this driver. But the driver continued for a long way, and we'll continue now to see the scene. As we can tell you now that we're getting our bearings here a little bit more. Sabrina's on Wabash because you can see Miller's Pub over there on the right and the L tracks up above Sabrina, and the crowd continues to move on. So the good news, Sabrina, the takeaway from this is that it appears no one was hurt. That section we saw was toward the end of where that vehicle entered the demonstrators, and no one before that was hit, correct?
It appears so, Joe, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we did not see any ambulances respond to the corner where we were previously standing. Just a bunch of families and others who were shocked to see what had happened, kind of stepping to the side and consoling themselves for at least a brief moment, trying to really understand exactly what happened here. I cannot say with 100% certainty that nobody was injured, especially as people started to run from this car driving through the street here, but it does not seem like there were any major injuries because we had not seen first responders come bring anybody into an ambulance and bring them presumably to a hospital. But as this hunt for this vehicle continues, this protest is also continuing. This is hours and hours long of people gathering, and the crowd has grown significantly throughout the afternoon. Folks making their way throughout downtown. It started at Federal Plaza. There was another group that was circling. So you can imagine just how many people were here and how dangerous that would have been if that car would have veered just 1 foot to the left or to the right of where it went through. So many questions here on the ground, but the mission of these protesters remains clear. They are still protesting the presence of ICE here in Chicago, and did take a moment to make sure that those who were in the area of this car driving by were okay. We saw police officers making sure that those folks were okay, but this protest, as we mentioned, it continues, Joe.
Sabrina, thank you very much. You can see Skywatch is back over a large police presence, but we believe that shot is actually from, downtown. So I regret to say that it appears Skywatch has lost the vehicle that we were following there for quite some time. Let's bring in Marie Saavedra. Marie, you were just trying to leave here a short time ago and got caught back in the traffic of what was happening there.
I was just right on State Street, just outside of our studios. It was clear to me that the group, as Sabrina mentioned, was getting much larger. And so since they were marching and on the move, I watched as police were flowing with them and starting to block various streets. But I have to say, the moment where I can only imagine the car went through the crowd is the same moment that I, right about at State Street in Dearborn, saw officers, CPD officers, start to run. And they were running south. You heard radios squawking. You also saw a lot of people who might not necessarily have been a part of this demonstration, but are just leaving work or down here for any number of reasons, start to flow toward that area. It is where officers started running toward. And we see now what that immediate response was, and wondering if they're getting a lead on that car. I'm so glad we have that video. So again, it looks like at this point, we don't necessarily believe anyone was hurt, but we continue to wait and get more information on that as we watch this group continue to move, demonstrating against ICE raids across our country.
This crowd has grown considerably over the course of the last 2 hours. It started as a small gathering at Federal Plaza, and as you mentioned, Marie, it has grown, and sort of several groups that had maybe gathered in different areas came together. Sabrina mentioned that as well. It now stretches several blocks. Let's check in with our Jermont Terry. He's on the ground, and Jermont, I understand you've seen some arrests now.
That is correct. We have seen that we are currently at State and Monroe. We have seen about 2 individuals that have been taken into custody. As you can see, the police have their transport wagon here, and they have been right at this intersection for the majority of the afternoon when things got a little disruptive. We saw police. We hope to have some video for you momentarily. They were actually carrying one woman who was wrapped in a flag. She was an agitator from what we could tell from the scene. They then put her and the transport vehicle, and just about less than 2 minutes ago, we saw yet another person with her hands and being cuffed, also being taken in here. This is somewhat of the staging area that Chicago police are dealing with. As you know, they're dealing with that situation with the red vehicle right on Wabash, but just 1 block west here on State, they are trying to control the traffic. Taking into consideration, this is the middle of rush hour. Chicago police, they are out here in full force trying to maintain as this group essentially marches down and throughout the loop. Police are trying to make sure that the group is safe but not disrupting traffic. That's hard to do when you have so many pedestrians, not to mention CTA buses on the situation. Now, I believe that we may have that video in question. Let's roll that video. This is the video that I was referring to. This took place about 15 minutes ago. That's when Chicago police, you can see that they are carrying a young lady. She was wrapped in the flag. She was one of 2 people I saw being detained here and taken into the back of this police transport vehicle. What she did, unclear, but obviously Chicago police not taking any chances and being very clear with people. You have the right to protest, but at the same time, we want to make sure that you're doing it in a peaceful way. Again, this is the video right now of this individual who was carried at least by 2, 3, or 4 police officers, kind of hog-tied as she was wrapped in that flag, then put into the police transport vehicle. What she did to get arrested and or detained to be determined. But again, if we come back live here, you can see that Chicago police, they have the southbound lanes of State Street blocked right now. This is somewhat their staging area. As whatever is going on, they're making sure that they have a way to get those who are detained. But again, as you know, with the police transport vehicle, Joe and Marie, this is what they do. They make sure that individuals can be detained and in a safe manner, and they will eventually process them in that process, in that time frame. But we do know that group continues to march here in the loop. Where they're going next to be determined, but you can tell by the group out here that Chicago police, they are ready in full force just to make sure that things maintain order. That's very late. It's going to send it back to you guys now in the studio.
Jermont, thank you so much for covering those arrests this evening. We're taking another look from CBS Skywatch as this large group, fairly spread out throughout the loop right now, has moved into Grant Park. From our estimations, it's a few different groups who are demonstrating in the loop tonight, protesting ICE raids across our country. They've sort of melded into one group and been a part of this demonstration that you've seen block off roads and only get larger over this evening. And it was the same group that was in the crosshairs of a vehicle earlier this evening.
Well, it has really been a very orderly demonstration. These folks who are out on the streets have been cooperative. You can see the method of the Chicago Police Department setting up bicycle officers at certain intersections, sending the demonstrators into certain directions.
Like you see here.
As you see here, and these protesters were following the orders and the instructions of CPD. There were even officers at the front and the back of these large groups. You can see it set up right here. So it's been very orderly, and until this moment we talked about just about 15 or 20 minutes ago, and if you're just joining us, we want to show you when a car blasted through a section of these demonstrators on State Street. We have the video now, and we'll show you here. There's the red car that's coming in, and you'll see people trying to get out of the way, others standing in front, and others beating the car, trying to slow it down or stop it. And then you'll see the officer right there as it passed. There were officers lined up there, but the car was able to escape and then take off around the loop. And ultimately down, we tracked it all the way to Clark and Cicero, where our chopper Skywatch was unable to catch up with it. Cermak, sorry. And at that point, as we were talking live when this was happening, it is really hard to follow these vehicles considering the buildings, the overpasses, the underpasses. But it's unclear at this point where that car is right now, whether police have caught up with that driver. A woman did get out at that intersection of Clark and Cermak, and there were 2 people who were just crossing the street there who appeared to be trying to give the car a push, almost as if it had stalled. But then once the light turned green, the driver, a woman who got out of the car briefly, got back in and then took off again.
We are back now live looking at this demonstration as it goes through Grant Park. Joe mentioned CPD has been alongside this entire demonstration throughout the evening. They will continue to do so. We don't have any sense yet of how long this will go on into the evening, but we do intend to continue to follow it on our stream, CBS News Chicago, throughout the rest of the evening.